Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today we're going to be doing a Brothers War Premier Draft. This is my very first one of the set, and yeah, I'm excited to see what we open. Alright, now if you watched my limited content before, you know that I heavily rare draft because I also play the Explorer format, so I would be doing that here, except that I already have copies of Blast Zone from War of the Spark, so get to examine everything else now. And I do some homework before this set comes out, but try to mostly not overexpose myself. So you'll see me doing a lot of reading, scanning here. Some of them seem more familiar than others. Ones that I caught my eye from like preview season. But yeah, I'm just going over things. There's Ravenous Gigamole, Raised to the Ground. Just giving everything a once over, trying to figure out what I want. Normally I would just snatch up the rare if it's something I don't have for my collection, but I have plenty of Blast Zones, so Blanchwood Prowler, though, is something that's jumping out to me. It's either 2 mana 1/1 that puts a land in your hand, or 2 mana 2/2. So there's like basically like just a really good card. Either of those modes is perfectly fine. So nothing else is really jumping out to me, and it's a pretty low mana value item. So Iron Craw Crusher, made just for me to stumble over its name. It seems fine. It's just sort of overcosted in either mode. 6 mana land destruction. Red spell's not what we're really into. Foundry Inspector, I could see that being really strong. Ambush Paratrooper, likewise, I could see that being really good. Stern Lesson. I'm not, Disfigure is strong. Like I would so that you could see me selecting that right away. Bitter Reunion, I think, could have a home. Unleashed Shell, that seems great. I love playing aggressive decks, so like killing creatures and dealing damage to players gets my attention every time. I'm trying to figure out between Disfigure and Unleashed Shell. Chose Disfigure because it's just such a lower mana value. Now here's another rare draft opportunity with the Unwinding Clock. The thing is that with the Mystical Archive artifacts in this set, not all of them are Explorer legal. I will want one copy of at least each of them for Historic Brawl, but decide not to rare draft the Unwinding Clock and just keep trying to figure out what to take. Still doing a lot of card reading because this is my first time really delving into it. Going for Static Net seems incredibly strong, sort of like an Oblivion Ring effect that gains life. I'm bouncing between that and the what's it called? Bushwhack. Bushwhack is like a split card of Prey Upon and Lay of the Land, and you could see me struggling to decide which one. Ultimately, pick the green one because I have the other green card, and because it's a 1 mana card. I'm not sure if that was correct or not, but that was sort of the tiebreaker. But I could see an argument for taking like the O-ring effect. Scanning over things we see here. One thing I've been noticing this set, it feels like there's a lot of cards that I just would not be happy to play in my deck. Like there's just a lot of like sort of mediocre like fogs, or just mostly creating power stones. I don't know, things that require like a lot of hopefulness that your opponent is not smashing your face, which is what I try to do in limited. So that's sort of like the mentality I have. It's like Wasteful Heart, like there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm just not super excited to play. So I wonder how it's going to color people's perception of the format. Liquid Metal, I mean, some of the Mystical Archives are like super strong, like please give me them, but others are just not very exciting. So but yeah, scanning through, definitely not locked into any color by any means, like trying to stay open. Gnarlroot Pallbearer, there's a definite like mill sub-theme running through each of the colors. Like each of them have a common that mills and does something, so paying attention to things that care about stuff in the graveyard, because it seems like that could be a payoff. So that's the justification for that Tree Folk right there. Bone Saw is ready. Just scanning through things, and I see an Unleash Shell, and There's also the 2 mana 2. That one is tempting also, like with the green cards we have, but usual removal is a little bit more premium than like random creatures. So do have my eye on supply drop. I think that could actually have a home in some builds, but just getting what I consider a reasonable removal spell that late. Anyway, I'm willing to speculate on it at this point. Like I said, not locked in any colors by any means. Yeah, scanning over everything. Boulder Branch Golem seems pretty good to me. I also really wanted to try that uncommon where you can sacrifice something to deal damage, sort of like a modified fling. But Boulder Branch Golem seems pretty good as well. So you could see me struggling like between the Pyrrhic Blast and the, or is it Pyrrhic Blast? I don't know. Or the Boulder Branch Golem. Ultimately decide for the Golem. Yeah, I mean, the Excavation is one of those cards I was talking about that just doesn't really seem to do a whole lot, or just a very narrow use case. Giant Growth seems really strong. I'm also considering taking the 3/1. We're a little lean on creatures at like the front of our curve, the low end. But Giant Growth is just like a really powerful card, so you can see me agonizing over which one. Ultimately go for the creature at this point. So we have the opportunity for another Tree Folk. Take my opportunity to rare draft that right now. The tree, like, we're not going to play a ton of those anyway, so look through the red cards and see that Unleashed Shell has made it back to us, the first copy we saw. So happy we'll snatch that up, and it could be a sign that red is opening up for us. So we have the Spider, it seems fine. Giant Growth versus Whirling Strike. They both are incredible. Giant Growth, like at rate, is just super great. If we end up red, would love some number of Whirling Strikes as well, so... and this is where things sort of fall off. Like, none of the other cards are really super exciting. We could take the Kill Zone, but just black has not seemed super open, so just trying to sort of like cut red, potentially. Mishra's Onslaught actually seems pretty great, and there's like the Sibling Rivalry Threaten effect. But I've had a lot of success with Mishra's Onslaught-like cards in the past that either make some small creatures or do like a Trumpet Blast effect. So... wow, another Blast Zone. So not what you love to see open. Like, it's fine, especially if you lean more towards one color. Like, it could have some utility in games. But really liking the Horned Stone Seeker, especially because we sort of started leaning into red a little bit pack 1. But the Stone Seeker is just incredible. I love this kind of card. 2 mana, 2/2 menace, can make a Power Stone. Like, just sign me up. You know, especially with the power level of combat tricks we've seen. The Horned Stone Seeker just opens them up to trying to double block it and getting blown out by tricks. So, very happy to see that. Mishra's Juggernaut looks tempting. I think the Unearthed cards are very strong because, like I said, there's like a pretty strong self-mill sub-theme throughout the colors. Decided to go for the classic 3-mana 4/2. And this particular one, when it dies, it mills you. So it could pay us off potentially if we play that Tree Folk. And then hello, we see Erebalist Engineers, and you could see me just snap off. That's what I remember from Spoiler Season. And so what it is, it's a 3-mana 2/2 red-green card, and you have the choice of either dealing 1 to any target, putting 1/1 counter on anything, giving it haste and trample until end of turn, or creating a tap Power Stone. And those are all just amazing, great options. So you could see me just without even having to really scan the rest. Snatched it up right away. That's exactly what we were ordering. Exactly what the doctor ordered. And we already started moving into red. So like that, I took that as like a pretty strong sign. That's where we should be going. So Aetherflux Reservoir, and also Diabolic Intent. Some other medium cards, but this seems like a rare draft pack. I already have some Aetherflux Reservoir, so seems like a good time to go for Diabolic Intent. Could definitely see myself playing that in Explorer, so it's basically just trying to decide which one to rare draft, but I take the Diabolic Intent. Not a very strong card in draft, I don't think. Alright, so looking around, Blitz Automaton catches my eye. There's also Rock Hunter, the 3/1 with Reach. Looking over, oh, but there's a rare in the pack. Okay, so I take the rare. Ship off everything else. Hoping that we'll get some stuff back, but yeah, just rare drafting at this point. And I've done rare drafting enough that, and most modern sets have a lot of cards that are just fine to play. You know, there's not too much junk inside there, so you can survive rare drafting, and you won't be forced to put too many like unplayable cards in your deck. So that's what I'm going for. Might play some of these in Explorer. The Heavyweight Demolisher, that just seems very optimistic to me. 7 mana plus, you know, even more expensive on Earth cost, plus the sort of, I guess, sort of an upkeep cost to it to untap it. So not very excited about that. Do you see the Perimeter Patrol, just 3 mana 3/3 as the floor, and it could potentially get boosted by like Power Stones and Artifact creatures. So snatch that one up and move on. And it does seem like red and green are flowing to us. So it seems like we have sort of settled into the correct colors. Mishra's Onslaught and Rock Hunter. And yeah, those are like the main things I'm considering. Also looking over the Scrapsmith, but it just doesn't seem like we're really artifact dense enough for at this point. At least foreseeable for like this foreseeable rest of the draft. Decide to take the creature. Like I said, I do really like Mishra's Onslaught, but trying to fill out the lower end of the curve, and that'll make our combat tricks even more powerful. I'm not super familiar with Rune Chanter's Pike, besides what I've played in like Commander with it. It does seem strong. A baseline, it gives first strike, which is medium, but if you ever accumulate pump spells or like instant sorceries, or with the self-mill going on, it could get really, really powerful. So speculate on that for the rare drafting and for potentially playing it. But you could see like this is where like the card quality really falls off a cliff. Besides the Juggernaut, everything else really is junky here. So, but we'll happily take the Juggernaut, and then 2/4 with conditional, double strike doesn't seem great. Ornithopter might have a home in some archetypes. So, yeah, I don't know. It's very strange. Some cards really seem like not that great in this set. Yeah, take the Tactician. Just uncommon drafting at this point. And then, wow, only a few cards left. Very, very happy to see Blitz Automaton. Like, that was a card we would have taken happily the first time around, but it's a 3 mana 2/2 haste or a 7 mana 6/4 haste. And we would play a 3 mana 3/2 haste, that's it. But this has even more upside as like potentially casting it for a lot more. So very happily taking the Blitz Automaton. And hello, wow, you could see me freaking out right here. Worm Coil Engine, one of the best things to open in the set. You could see me very giddy right here. It's just incredibly strong. It's known limited powerhouse, can fit into any deck. So just immediately snatching up Worm Coil Engine, just going right for it. I'm seeing some new cards here that I haven't seen in packs before, so I'm having to do some more reading. But we have some options. We have Sigil of Valor, some experience with that through like Commander games. But yeah, looking over everything else, there are some things we probably play. Rust Goliath doesn't seem like what we want here. It's just like we're looking more lower curve. We have some like big prototypes, but we're probably only casting them for the smaller size. Very happy to see another Horned Stone Seeker. I already talked about how much I like that one. There's a Dragon Engine next to it. It seems medium, like not exactly what we'd really like. And a number of red and green cards in this pack, so we'll probably get something decent when it comes back to us. Gilded Lotus. Card I already have some copies of, also there's Unleashed Shell. But yeah, I'm going to take the Herbalist Engineers. Already talked about how amazing those are, and didn't rare draft the Lotus there because I already have some copies from previous sets, so it's a reprint on Arena. That's sort of like my rare drafting philosophy when I play. Like, can I use it in Explorer? It also depends on how like weak the rest of the pack is. Like, if the rest of the pack is really lame, then I'll just take the rare, even if I have it. So looking at what we have here, like the flying equipment could be pretty good, but another Blitz Automaton seems excellent. You know, like we even have some potential power stone. I mean, we have two horned stone seekers to make power stones, plus a few other sources. So we really could conceivably be casting these prototypes for full mana value. So a lot of options here. Basically, many good choices like strong combat trick, like Gaia's Gift. The 04 that deals with mountains doesn't seem incredibly strong in this kind of deck. But you could see me looking at Gaia's Gift. We could also rare draft the Stasis Coffin, and that's what I do. Basically, yeah, trying to build up that collection for Constructed. And there's enough red and green cards in there. We're going to get something good when that comes back anyway, even though there won't be that many cards left in it. Looking over what we have, doesn't seem like we're like in like the pallbearer kind of build. Not enough self-mill. So just take the artifact creature. We have Door to Nothingness and a few other things. Conscripted Infantry. You can see me just snatch up the door. And yeah, like red and green's incredibly open. Despite us like purposely just rare drafting, skipping out on a lot of stuff, we're still getting fed a lot of great choices. So Honor Guard, the 4/2, or Conscripted Infantry. And an argument can be made for any of those, but I decided to take the Infantry. Just a creature that dies into another creature is very strong in these kind of decks because it helps just keep the pressure on, keep us having a board presence at all times. Yeah, looking over, you know, Supply Drop is a maybe for this deck, but better if you have like Sacrifice payoff. So looking and yeah, Wasteful Harvest. I would love to see someone try a Wasteful Harvest deck. I don't know if it's even possible. And then a really late Unleashed Shell. Yeah, we'll definitely snatch that up. We could probably squeeze a third one in there as like, I mean, at that point, like it's a pretty good closer when you have that many ways to deal an extra 2 damage. You could really like, you can make some suboptimal attacks and then just get that last bit of damage inside there. So you could see me scanning over creatures versus non-creature count. Aeronaut's Wings. That could actually be pretty strong in this deck. You could see me take that, speculating. Very, very happy to see Rock Hunter here. Like I said, red, green. And then last pick, Mishra's Onslaught, which we could conceivably play. So the draft just went incredibly well. Despite the rare drafting, you know, handicapping us, we really, really got paid off for red-green. So I pretty quickly ditch Runechanter's Pike. It's good. We just don't quite have enough combat tricks to get there. We have a reasonably high instant and sorcery count, but 2 of them currently are Mishra's Onslaught. 3 of them are Unleashed Shell, which will not be hitting the graveyard very early. So ditch the Runechanter's Pike maybe another time. Oh, sorry. So I agonized over this for a while. This is flash forward in time at the final build. You could see there's the Wormcoil engine, a couple big prototypes. Basically pretty lean. Ended up going down to 1 Mishra's Onslaught. Really was not sure about that, but that's what it ended up going for. Was really hoping to try and get the second one in there. Could not really find a way to make that happen. So game 1, Forest Pass. Let's see what we do. Alright, so our mana colors are working out. Play the 3/1 Reach. I'm realizing at this point that probably should have played the Honor Guard first with like the ward to sort of protect it. But I sort of expected the opponent to play a blocker, and so I put the more expendable 3/1 out for that reason. But either way, no blocks means the opponent's taking 6. And this is just amazing, and like I love doing this kind of stuff, like just beating people down. They don't have much defense, so the opponent tosses out a 3/3. But I mean, we're pretty happy trading here because they're going to be down a creature. They're going to get smacked for 3, and we're going to play another 3-power creature. Now there is an argument for playing the one that could potentially get us a land and try and fetch that up to Devil Spell that turn. So like that was a consideration. I decided to play it safe. So they play the Ravenous Gigamole, and they return a creature to their hand. So we send in with the 3/1s. And they decide to block. We're okay with that. We have our own mana efficient play. Still missing a lands, but that means we're drawing like straight up action. Opponent's already at 8 life, so they're in pretty big trouble, and they play the retrieval unit, and we're pretty happy about that because it's not going to match up well for them. So we're going to use the prey upon mode of Bushwhack here, just for like the clean takedown. Would love an extra mana to double spell, and like I said, we could have really gambled for the double spell with our little green creature. Decided just not to mess around with it, but opponent has to deal with both of our lethal threats plus a haste creature. But they just play out a Rust Goliath, and just in case they have like Disfigure something, definitely going to add an extra creature to the board to ensure lethal. And that's game 1, just right there. Opponent's going to just take the damage, and we're on to the next one. That's just good, clean living, you know, casting 3/1s, smashing them, using fight spells. It's just, it's amazing. So, like I said, I'm like really of the get 'em dead style Unlimited. Now that's Titania's land, which is very strong. It can eventually start making bears. An opponent plays their 3/1. We decide to play our 3/1, not to be outdone. Now our Aerobalist Engineers would very nicely take that down, except that it has ward. So we're going to snap off this block here because we don't have like a clean way to deal with it. Would have happily eaten like a combat trick from them, but they play another X1. Now this isn't as juicy a target because, you know, it has an Earth. It's not the end for them if it gets shot down. But we're definitely going to do it right here. Use the ping to take down their Thopter. And, you know, they will be able to unearth it later on, but that's only like an aggressive mood, so basically like a Ravenous Chupacabra creature right there. So this is a little concerning. They play the Opportunist, making a Power Stone. Seems like one of the more powerful cards in green if you're leaning towards like a ramp strategy. You know, we have a lot of options here. Unfortunately, we don't have like a really good play a creature, fight theirs, and survive kind of play. But we're very happy with that trade because maybe that'll allow our other 3-power creatures to go through. So go ahead and play the Boulder Branch Golem and pass. Alright, so they have another Opportunist. So it could mean that there's some very nasty prototypes very soon in our future. So they play the Blanchwood Prowler and get the counter. Alright, so now we have 5 mana. We definitely send in. Okay, so opponent was nervous about like a giant growth or something. But that allows us just to play land, Mishra's Juggernaut, pass, and have some great options next turn. Unfortunately, oh, and opponent just packs it in. So that was a pretty early concession. I'm guessing the opponent was color screwed, but it's hard to know exactly. Like it still felt like there was a lot of game left to be played, but who knows what. But anyway, we take those in the business. On to game 3. We have another great curve out here. So we're going to play our Honor Guard and pass. The ward on this seems just great. Like, if they want to disfigure it, it takes their whole turn right now, you know. So this is a pretty tough one. They play the 3/1 that dies into a 1/1. You know, it just doesn't seem like there's any good way to deal with it. We could shoot it down with the Aerobalist Engineers, but then they have the 1/1 to still block it. So, not like it doesn't match up very well. Their defensive card matches up very well with what we're trying to do. But we're just going to send in, see what happens. And just let the trade happen. So they get a 1/1 for their troubles. And, you know, we could play the Aerobalist Engineers and just shoot it down right away. Decide to play the 3/1. Because the Engineers are just so powerful. Let's just wait. Maybe they play another 3/1 or something like that. So it's worth it just to hold on to the more powerful one for now. Alright, very happy to see Prison Sentence on our 3/1. It makes sense because it has a decent dies trigger, so like makes sense why they put it on there, but that's a very premium removal spell on a non-premium creature of ours, so very happy to see that happen. And the opponent smashes in for 1. Okay, so have some options. Now here's the question. Do you choose the ping mode to take out their creature, or do you choose the +1/+1 counter mode to create a bigger creature and get haste as well? I don't know why, but I decided to just create the 3/3 because it just seems like a decent sized body, and the 1/1 just doesn't seem to be causing us much trouble right here. We also have the safety of giant growth right now, which turns out to matter right away. They got excavation explosion. We're able to save it with the giant growth. Now opponent's still going to get their power stone, like we didn't fizzle their spell or anything. But they attack in because they know they're not going to block our 3/3 anyway. So now we have options. So we can attack in for 3. And decide just to play the Horned Stone Seeker. Get our Power Stone. And then hold on to the fight spell for now. Trying to see what the opponent's doing. We know they already have 3 colors going on. Alright, so they play the 2/4 that I just don't like that card. It just seems way too weak. 4 mana 2/4 that you can pay more mana to give Double Strike just does not seem at all like what you want to be doing. Trying to figure out what to do. So I was about to just spew off Unleash Shell on their 2/4, but then I realized we could put them in we could try and trap them. So I decided to attack because Unleash Shell is an instant. And especially with the menace creature, you think that this trap might work right here. And so the opponent does decide to go for the double block to take out our Horned Toad, but we can fire off Unleash Shell to shoot down the 2/4, deal 2 damage to them anyway, and then kill the 1/1 for free. So I think, I almost made the mistake of doing that pre-combat, but decided to try and try and bait them with the trap, and it worked. So we have options here. A lot of things. We could play the Erebos Engineers, shoot down to 3/1. We could play the fight spell with our chained up creature. Anyway, there's a lot we can do. But opponent's in pretty big trouble. And I'm not super certain at this point what kind of rafts there are. But this is what I decided to do. Use the fight mode of Bushwhack with our useless chained up creature and theirs. So they're just going to trade with each other in this fight. And we'll each be left with the 1/1. Now the cool thing we can do here is, so now we can play the Engineers as a 2/2 pinging it down, or as a 3/3 trample haste until end of turn. I'm not really sure what the best mode is. I actually can't even remember what I do for that right here. Let's see. If I ping it down. Okay, so I decided just to ping it down to play it safe. Not sure if there's any like conditional indestructibility, death touch kind of things, but shoot it down, attack in, and it's just going to keep narrowing their options because we have a menace creature in play. We have like a mass pump effect, so unless the opponent board wipes, they're just done, and we're getting the good game and the concession. On to the next one. So things are going really well in draft number 1 in Brothers War. How your first couple drafts go can really color how you feel about the format. So so far I'm getting to play an aggressive deck and beating people down, so you know that I love it. So we have a lot of options on 3, but opponent plays a 2/1, so you know that the Engineers are coming down to put in some work. And this is going to allow our 3/1 to crash in, so that's why I snapped this off so quickly. We still have some other 3 mana plays, so even if we don't draw a land for a couple turns, we'll still be good. Our opponent has a 2/2 Vigilance. Alright, so we draw a land that opens up the Golem on the smaller mode. And it decides just to crash in and just keep putting the pressure on them. Alright, so they traded the 3/1. And there is an argument for playing the 3/3 that triggers off artifacts first, because we got artifacts the next couple of turns, but decided to go for mana efficiency because it could matter to be able, as far as like double spelling later on. So opponent hits it with the prison sentence. Once again, pretty happy to see that. Not happy to see a Scry 2 to the top, though, because it could mean some nasty things are coming for us. Holding onto the haste creature because, 1, it can trigger the creature we just cast. 2, we might actually get to 7 mana and just cast it in jumbo mode. So, oh, and this is just could be a massacre for the opponent. Like playing a 5 mana 4/4 is just exactly what we wanted them to do, because we get to remove it, deal 2 damage, smack them for 5. Opponent falls to 6, and we're 1 mana away from a 6/4 haste coming down. They play Recruitment Officer and a Thopter. So opponent's fighting the good fight here. Alright, and we draw the 7th land, so we're going to slam down the 6/4 haste. The question is, how do we attack? The opponent does have a 2/3, so like they could eat our 2/2 if we send everything in. So I think I play it honestly too cautious here. I should have just attacked all, because the blocking situation, like they could have blocked the 2/1 on the 6/4 and the 2/3 on our 2/2, taken 4, but we still would have had 2 attackers left. So I think this is a poor attack by me. Should have just sent everything in, because it allows them to eat up our 6/4 and have smaller creatures left behind. So now they play a 2/2 and they pass. Now we still might get there. We attack in. Alright, so they flash in a 1/2. For self-preservation though, they have to chump. Well, they could trade one, chump the other, but you could see now I'm getting sort of worried. Like, we're getting a little flooded, and the attack earlier might have done us in. So let's see what Curate does for the opponent. That's digging really deep. The Surveil 2, like, let's say they Surveil an Unearth card, or I guess that wouldn't do super good on defense, but... Alright, we draw another land, hoping they don't have anything waiting, and that's it. On to the next one. Now this hand is you know, we have so many 2-mana creatures. Like we could draw one of the Horned Toads or the 3/1, you know, so kept this hand off the strength of what we could draw. And we have good mana, so definitely not sending it back. Okay, so did not draw a 2-mana creature, but we should be fine. We're going first this game, so that definitely helps. And we have some strong spells, so... Our opponent plays a 2/2. Passes to us. There's the 2-mana creature just in time. Doesn't seem like we want to hold back on the engineers, because they might be able to still snipe an X1 from the opponent. So we play the 3/1 and pass. See what the opponent does. Astral Cornucopia with 1, I think, charge counter. So right now it's just a mana lift. It could have been more later on. Interesting. So it could mean the opponent has some pretty ambitious things going on, or that they're just trying to make it to some big prototypes. This is what I decided to do, is just play, you know, the 3/2 haste would just get eaten up by the 2/2. So decide to play our 3/3 temporary trample haste, and they're going to make this trade, which is not even bad for us because we get a 1/1 afterwards. And, you know, if we could chip their life total down low enough, we see Mishra's Onslaught could just push us over to the edge. So they play a 2/2. Let's see what else happens. Alright, so they have Epic Confrontation. So that allows them to just fight, but with the boost from Confrontation, have their 2/2 left over. So, what do we do now? Decide just to play the Stone Seeker, because the Power Stone actually matters a lot. It unlocks Mishra's Juggernaut and could potentially get us there for like the Blitz Automaton for 7 mana. Now, this causes me to sit up in my seat. Phyrexian Processor. So what this does is lets them pay an arbitrary amount of life, and then they can pay for tap it to create Phyrexian tokens of that size. Now the opponent happens to make, you know, they're just choosing in the dark. And the set's new, of course. They choose 5, which is about the worst number they could have chosen against us. I mean, I could see how they were hesitant because they were under pressure, but 6 would have made our life really difficult. And you see those 2 copies of Unleashed Shell just sort of rubbing their hands together with these... Yeah, and so the opponent takes their their whole turn to make a 5/5, and we are only too happy to see that happen. Play the land, slam, unleash shell, and of course the land was necessary for this to happen, so that was very fortunate. We have to acknowledge that. But now we get to ascend in with the 5/3 trample and the 2/2 menace. The opponent's just going to fall to 1 life. So I think Phyrexian Processor is a very strong card, but it's difficult. It's a very mana-intensive card. There's a lot of artifact destruction. You have to pay a ton of life. Like, I think you need a ton of Boulder Branch golems to like gain a ton of life back, something like that. So opponent has instant speed processor up, so we're going to see what they try and do. But we already know basically there's nothing they can do with our assortment of spells in hand. They can't stop us. So they line up the block, currently still lethal, waiting to see what happens. I was definitely expecting to make a Phyrexian there, but they attempt to give their person lifelink, which I don't think would have mattered anyway, and we have the Unleashed Shell for the extreme lockout. So next game, Horned Stone Seeker and a bunch of mountains. This is a riskier keep, but we're paid off right away. And sometimes that just happens. You know, I've definitely had the games where I keep that. Next draws mountain, next draws green creature. You know how it goes. So, but we're not punished at all. We play our Horned Stone Seeker, get that Power Stone out there, and have some great options for the subsequent turns. Airlift Chaplain. That card seems very strong to me. So opponent seems like they have like a soldier's theme going on. We know they're at least somewhat green. We see that forest sitting in their graveyard. And we have options here. What do we do? It seems like the best thing to do, because we could crash in there with the 3/3 trample Engineers. Decide just to play the 3/1. Once again, Engineers is good sort of like many turns during the game, so there's a very good chance the opponent plays an X1, we get to snipe it. So we attack in with our little Horned Lizard. Really, really love that card. You're going to see me drafting that card a lot. Let's just say that. 2/2 Menace, make a Power Stone. Yes, please. Now, when it dies, you do have to sacrifice a Power Stone. That is a thing. So have to keep that in mind. An opponent realizes that, so they use Deadly, what's its name, and pop our Power Stone, which we're okay with. Second, Engineers. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, I mean, the opponent gains some life back, but we can still race them pretty effectively. We do have to pay attention for when they get enough mana to pump the team with their, what's it called, their flying 1/2 flyer. So mill 3 lands, which we're extremely happy about. We don't want to really draw lands at this point, so that was like essentially a surveil 3 right there. And we don't bother putting it into our hand because we'd rather have the 2/2 creature at this point. The opponent grabs our 3/1 with Static Net, and we draw Unleash Shell. Now it may seem weird to use it on a 1/2, but with the Power Stone out, they're actually very close to being able to activate it, and this deals 2 to them, unlocks our attacks, knocks them to 12, so seemed like a big upside. So we know the opponent is color screwed, so we're trying to press our advantage here. So they missed the land drop, still missing green, and this is just what dreams are made of right here. I mean, look at this play. We draw the land, which allows us to play Engineers, deal 1 damage to their 2/2. And we could, maybe there's a pump spell we could get completely blown out by, but I decided just to go for it. Play the second Engineers, ping it again, and the opponent is acknowledging the silliness of what just happened. Smack them for 5, and it's basically game over. So they finally find their green source. Opponent's not giving up yet, though. They play a 3/6. We attack in. So opponent falls to 1. We're feeling good. That land, would have been nice if it was basically anything. Another green, and they play Obstinate Bailout. So right when I thought the game was over, they're right back in it. They have 2 creatures that very much dwarf what we have going on. Opponent's lining something up. Alright, so they play the Prowler. Let's see what they do. Would be alright, so yeah, so they definitely don't grab the land in this case. Have another green sword and another green mana floating, and they're able to bushwhack. So the opponent found their green sources just in time, and Obstinate Baloth is doing a lot of work here. So they, right when I thought I was about to close the game, they have a very impressive turn, 2 turns in a row that completely stabilize them. And so now our assault has been completely blunted, and they're able to start sending in with the 2/2 creature, which we can't really block at this point. And then we start flooding out. So still not completely out of it, but man, it seemed like we were super close to bringing that one home. Still not out of the question with like Mishra's Onslaught, but then we see the, what's its name, Titania's Land. That is really, really bad news for us. We have a 3/1, but opponent now has on-demand bears with their land. So honestly, our best hope right now is trying to mill them. But now they have more creatures than us all of a sudden. So now I'm still hanging on, because depending on their attack patterns, and if we draw Mishra's Onslaught, we could still kill them with the +2/+0 for the team. Alright, so another 3/1 is not what we were hoping for. Like if we... No, I guess we already drew both our copies of Engineer, so if we drew the 3/2 haste, the Blitz Automaton that turn, we could have won. Oh wait, no, never mind. They would have had... Yeah, so it still would have been close. Thankfully, we clear out the Obstinate Baloth. Really thought they're going to block with the bear token, so that's like a little bit better for us, but it's still not great because they got as many 2/2 bears as they want. Epic Confrontation takes down a 3/1 of ours. They're just trimming down our team, knowing that they have the inevitability at this point. They just gotta make sure they don't overextend into like something crazy from us. But the opponent is navigating this really well. Like this is just like a masterclass in playing from behind, and they've just done an excellent job. Like we had them down to 1 life, and we had like 3 creatures to their 0, no, 4 creatures to their 0, and then now look at this game. And this is also an excellent attack from the opponent, because we have to block in such a way that'll basically just ensure we cannot kill them next turn. So we have to block. We're forced to block 3 creatures in this combat, and we don't even get to like, because we're forced to chump the 4/4 unless we did like a triple trade kind of block. But still trying to leave the door open to maybe winning somehow. But yeah, Juggernaut didn't get there. If we were able to mill that like with like the 4/2 dying, that might have been an avenue towards winning, because we could have unearthed that, had like surprise haste plus whatever we drew. Like that's like what we would have needed to close out that game. But credit to the opponent for taking that one down. And that's loss number 1, but we're not out of it yet. So this is an interesting hand. We got 2 of the Horned Stone Seekers, and now we're drawing tons of artifacts, so we could potentially start ramping out 6/4 hasters before too long. So opponent plays a 2/3. So we draw a green card, which is not great. Considering tossing like a 3/2 haste out there at this point, trying to calculate... So what I'm doing right now is crunching the numbers, like, all right, if we play another Horned Seeker and a land, how soon can we actually start paying 7 mana? Because it's still not a trivial amount of mana to get to. But decided to sort of go for it. We're so close, and we have sort of like Unleash Shells, like an intermediate card to cast potentially. So we're already up to 5 artifact mana. An opponent is getting aggressive here, sending up the 2/3. See what they follow up with. Ravenous Gigamole. And they seem to have a graveyard themed deck. And so they opt to not I guess maybe they didn't even hit something. But anyway, they create a 3/4. Alright, so we decide to stay aggro, because we have all these hasty creatures. Now, I almost end the turn here, but decide, you know what? We have so many things to cast at 7 mana, might as well just cast a 3/2 and then pass. It's because we have like the golem, we have the automaton, like we have plenty to do at 7 mana. Let's just add to the board. So we finally draw a green source. The attack's still not good with the opponent not attacking, so decide to play the full value Boulder Branch Golem, gaining 6, and that's just going to open some great options for us up, having like just a massive creature. Now this is either the greatest bluff ever, or yeah, we're not going to call this bluff because they probably have a combat trick. So opponent fires up the pump spell, getting them 5 life and drawing a card. We're waiting to see what happens next. And then they fight one of our 2/2s, gaining another 5 life for their trouble. So it's almost like we haven't dealt them any damage yet. And we lose a Power Stone, which actually matters a lot because we were hoping to get that automaton out there for mega value. So decide to fire off Unleash Shell here. Wonder if I should have tried to set up a trap like before, but doing it this way allows for like just a massive attack. It would have been more awkward, you know, we would have had to like sort of leave the 3/2 and the 2/2 menace back. So pre-combat there was to allow all attackers to go through. Alright, Sky Fisher Spider. Sacrificing a creature to take down our 6/5. Sky Fisher Spider seems really strong. I look forward to trying that in a draft sometime. So we send him with our 3/2, and opponent just locks in the trade here. And the spider has an ability where they can, when it dies, they can exile it to gain life equal to the number of creatures in their graveyard. So they do that. And the creature they have in play starts accumulating 1 counter per upkeep as long as there's 3 creatures in their graveyard. So there was the consideration of not gaining the life from the spider to start getting counters on their 2/3. So opponent did not go that route, but that's just an interesting option that they had. They play the Power Plant Worker and pass. Unleash Shell is pretty great because if we do it pre-combat here, they take 2, they lose the 4/4, and we can attack with both. And they could trade with the 2/4. I think they wisely do not block here because now their creature can start accumulating counters on upkeep. So you can see now it's turned into a 3/4. Alright, so they have Epic Confrontation, takes down our 4/2. Let's see what we mill. We only have 1 unearth card, so alright, mostly lands and a fight spell, so not unhappy about that. And they send it. So opponent has been very aggressive this game. I mean, they don't know the contents of our hand, but we were really happy they attacked that turn because now we get to send in with a 6/4 and a 2/2 menace, and they're basically dead. This is, you know, they could chump it, but we still have a 6/4 haste and a 2/2 menace. Now I was really hoping they didn't have giant growth there, and they didn't, so we're doing okay. Yeah, so that attack last turn, yeah, it's hard to know. Like I said, they didn't know our hand, but and then there's the removal spell right there. So maybe it was justified after all. We fall to 8. We have options. 2 green sources, so we can't empty our whole hand out. Decide to lock in the hasty damage right here. We have so much haste in this deck. We have 2 Blitz Automatons and 2 Airbalist Engineers. So I just love when you can get like high quality haste creatures in there because you can just steal games out of nowhere. So opponent falls to 2, trying to figure out which creature to play. You know, the 3/1 or end up playing the Prowler. Already knowing we're not grabbing the land here. Mill our Wormcoil Engine, which is unfortunate, but leaving the land in the graveyard so we have a 2/2. And now we have 3 lethal threats that they have to figure out a way to deal with. You could see me looking sadly at the Wormcoil Engine, but we got there. So, next game. We've been blessed to have our colors most of these games. There have been a couple hands we've kept the only mountains, so. But yeah, really hoping to hit a land right here. This is the power of Blanchwood Prowler. And we do hit a mountain, which is incredibly clutch. Sort of unlocks the rest of our hand. Very happy to first pick this card for basically this exact reason you see here. It's going to make this hand work, which otherwise it might not have gotten there. Our opponent plays Elsewhere Flasks and passes. And that's exactly the kind of card, sort of like a do-nothing card. We love seeing that from the opponent because we're going to just smash them relentlessly as they play quote-unquote do-nothing artifacts. So player 4/2 and pass, feeling pretty good. Now they play the Opportunist, get their Power Stone, and yeah, I mean that's like a great play from them because now they have a creature that can trade with what we have going. Decide to play the Engineers and put a counter on it and give it trample. And the reason to do that is because we have Giant Growth. Like, that's the whole reason. I was really hoping they'd block the Engineers, because then we could have gotten this extra trample damage through. But we end up Giant Growthing our 4/2 just to take out their 3/2. So let's see what the opponent does. Pristine Talisman. Love seeing do-nothing artifacts. But they have another Opportunist. So opponent has had really high creature quality thus far. And very worryingly for us, now has a ton of mana. Basically, they could start slamming whatever prototypes even exist in this format. So opponent's thinking through the blocks right here. We've already demonstrated a trick, and they're in survival mode right now. They want to survive to cast their massive things they're ramping towards. We're trying to make them dead before that can happen. So we're able to play Mishra's Juggernaut, which feels like a pretty good follow-up. I mean, it's going to be a 5/3 Trampler next turn, and it has Unearth, so. And you can see this is the first game we've actually drawn Wormcoil Engine. So it's sitting in our hand, and then land number 6. Very happy to see that. Now, anyway, the opponent's at 19, so just send in with the Juggernaut, which has to attack. Opponent snaps off that trade. We're happy to see that because we want to try and clear the way for Wormcoil Engine to do its work. So them being down at 6/5 is very good for us, especially when it's an unearthed creature they trade with. So we play Wormcoil Engine, pass, feeling pretty great, but opponent has, really gained a lot of life. Like, we've already smacked him for a ton of damage, and then here comes full value Boulder Branch Golem number 2. Opponent's up to 26, and that Pristine Talisman is starting to really matter as well. Looking at our mana, it seems like a great turn to unearth Mishra's Juggernaut and attack in. You could see me trying to decide whether to attack in with everything. Decide just to attack. Oh no, attack with everything, because opponent could trade for the 2/2, but then they take a ton of damage here, so they fall to 14. Wormcoil is gaining us life, so we don't even worry about that. Juggernaut disappears. And the reason we didn't catch our other spells is because we'd love to get to 7 mana and cast just a massive Boulder Branch Golem. So opponent plays Blanchwood Prowler, and yes, opponent milled a Wormcoil Engine. So we are extremely happy they did not draw that. But they have Battery Bearer, so they are like full-on ramp, and they have had a very high-quality card selection we've seen. Like, very good stuff. They've had Wormcoil Engine, multiple Boulder Branch Golems, Battery Bearer's great, the 3/2s that make Power Stones. Like, their deck has been basically like a perfect archetype of what you want to be doing in blue-green. really powerful. So they traded the Wormcoil Engine, but we get a 3/3 lifelink and a 3/3 Death Touch for our troubles. And decide to play a pair of 3/1s, still hoping for like that 7th mana for the Golem. Let's see what the opponent has. Let's see if, I mean, they've already had great plays thus far. All right, Epic Confrontation takes down our lifelink Worm. Obstinate Baloth. I mean, the opponent's just had just tons of life gain packed into this deck of theirs. Alright, so that Baloth is actually really, I mean, they have 2 4 toughness creatures, so it really brick walls what we're trying to do. But we do have a Death Touch creature. Just checking out the graveyard. Alright, so we take down the Obstinate Baloth, and it allows us to slam our full power Boulder Branch Golem, which currently looks great because they can't even double block it. But if the opponent just gets like 1 prototype creature here, then they're going off with Battery Bearer and drawing cards and stuff. So we're really just crossing our fingers, because whenever they cast an artifact with mana value 6 or greater, they draw a card. So they could just start chaining things with how much mana they have and the Battery Bearer. So we needed like a reprieve from giant artifacts, and it looks like the opponent is sort of flooding out. Like if they probably have more Boulder Branch Golems or other awesome things in there. So we decided to go for like the whammy play, just Bushwhack on Battery Bearer, and it actually works. Was fearful of like a giant growth or something to blow us out, but this is basically going to crack the game open for us right here. Opponent can trade for a 3/1, but we smash them for a ton of damage and basically have them on the ropes now, because they're really hoping to keep that Battery Bearer around. And yeah, the opponent's just flooding out, so they're locking in the life gain. We draw a land. Not happy to see that, but happy to deal them 10 damage. And let's see if opponent can wiggle their way out of this. Opponent's deck has been amazing. They just flooded at the end, so it makes sense that they're in like this bracket right here of, you know, ostensibly 6 wins. So stern lesson from them, they might still find something. So they find another opportunist. They've had just an incredible deck. Epic Confrontation takes another one down, and so look at that. Like, they're still not technically dead. You know, they could chump the 6/5, but we happen to draw like the whammy closer right there, Mishra's Onslaught. So they're going to chump our 6/5. We're going to fire off the Trumpet Blast option, and that is going to be game over. So opponent had an awesome deck and played well, so really happy to have participated in this game, and that's it. And there you have it, first draft of the format, and a clean 7-1. So really, really loved playing red-green, and honestly, that was so much fun. It did so well, it's probably going to make me severely overrate 3/1s for the rest of this format. So yeah, but that's the game. And yeah, let me know in the comments if you've been able to smash people down with red-green in this format. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.